Hi, I'm Dorothy Poole, Lead Information Developer for BMC Software. In this video, I will introduce you to Development Studio's interface and show you the basics of navigating Development Studio. Development Studio is a graphical authoring tool that you can install on Windows and use to create, modify, and test workflows, also called processes. You can edit rules and schedules to trigger workflows automatically by external events or to run at regular intervals. When you log into Development Studio, you will see the Welcome page.
After you configure a connection to your BMC Atrium Orchestrator environment, it appears in the top right. You need to configure a connection to a BAO environment to perform many tasks in Development Studio. You can have multiple connections, but only one can be active at a time. The active environment is indicated by a green check mark.
The area below the environments will list any modified modules. On the left pane is the Launchpad, which is the main navigation area. It contains icons to launch Development Studio work areas and tools. Connections opens the Connections dialog box, which is where you can configure connections to the environment. Library Manager opens the Library Manager, which is what you use to import and export modules. Designer opens the main Development Studio work area, where you can create and edit processes, also called workflows. Use Debugger to test workflows. Let's take a look at each of these areas. You use connections to configure connections to your BAO environment. Connections establish communications between BMC Atrium Orchestrator environments and BMC Atrium Orchestrator Development Studio. Development Studio must be configured and connected to an environment when you are importing and exporting to the repository or when you are testing and debugging processes. As I mentioned already, you can configure multiple connections for Development Studio, but only one connection can be active at a time. Library Manager is the interface between Development Studio and the repository. After you establish a connection to an environment, you can use Library Manager to import modules from the repository and unbundle the modules in Development Studio. Unbundling loads the modules into the Development Studio workspace. Then you can edit and customize module processes, rules, configurations, and schedules. Library Manager has 4 tabs. Use the Import Modules tab to import modules from the repository or a disk into Development Studio and unbundle them. You can choose to only import modules and return to Library Manager when you want to unbundle the modules. Modules are not available for use until you unbundle them. Use the Unbundle Modules tab to load imported modules into the workspace if you did not unbundle the modules when you imported them. On the Compare Modules tab, you can compare modules from the local workspace with modules in the local library or the repository. Use the Export Modules tab to export modules that you created or customized to the repository or to a disk. Designer contains the process design and modeling tools that are at the core of Development Studio. Project Navigator organizes the modules and processes that are imported and unbundled in your workspace. In this pane, you can search processes. You can customize existing processes and create new ones. When you double-click a process name, that process is displayed on the process canvas. Activity Palette displays the activities that you use to develop processes. Drag and drop the activities onto the process canvas to use them in a process. Process Canvas is the area where you develop, build, and modify processes. It includes 2 tabs. The Process tab graphically displays a process and its activities. The PDL, Process Design Language tab, displays a read-only view of the XML representation of a process. The Debugger Tool enables you to step through workflow testing to ensure that the workflow does what is expected. You can set breakpoints on activities to pause testing at specific points and take an in-depth look at those places in the process. This concludes the introduction to navigating Development Studio. For more information about working in Development Studio, see the BMC Atrium Orchestrator Platform Wiki. Thank you.